Hi everybody, thank you for being here. My name is Matthew Griffin. I'm the CEO and founder of the 311 Institute. We're a futures and deep futures think tank. Typically we go anywhere between today and 50 years out, so that's 2020 to 2070, depending on what year you're watching this, of course. And if you're a multinational organization or an individual, typically you likely care a little bit more about the near future, the next 5 to 10 years. Maybe if you're a little bit of a visionary, you care about the next 20 years. If you're a government, obviously you care about tomorrow's poll results, but aside from that, you typically care between 20 to 50 years out. You know, sort of what happens in that sort of area. Typically in that area, we're talking about the future of jobs, education, skills, infrastructure, transportation, energy, all that kind of things. And from a politician's perspective, the unanswered question of, will I be replaced by an artificial intelligence that's better than me? And that keeps them up at night all around the world. So I also run the Exponential University, and actually that's quite appropriate because we're going to be talking about how we unlock your exponential potential throughout this entire presentation, and also the World Futures Forum, where we bring together people to help try and solve a lot of the world's larger challenges. That's it. And while what we do basically is only a drop in the ocean, we think it's a significant drop in the ocean. But anyway, so for any of those of you that work in the technology industry, you'll be aware of this phrase, hopefully, exponential technology. In my background, yes, I've worked for some of the vendors, basically, that you are buying products from today, Joy. If I went back to 1956 and I sold a gigabyte of storage, on the one hand, I'd be incredibly wealthy because I'd be selling it for $820 million, but I'd have to transport that thing around, basically, in an aircraft. A lorry will also do, but IBM being IBM, they love aircraft, obviously, as you can tell by this picture from 1956. As we start fast forwarding over the next sort of 70 years, you can really see what's happening to storage just as a sort of segment. So on the one hand, basically everything is getting smaller, basically densities are increasing, so areal densities are increasing, but inevitably, when you start having a look at the price performance of these different technologies, and just bear this in mind when you're negotiating your next storage deal with your vendors, the price has fallen by over 15 billion-fold. That's billion with a B. So next time you're having a conversation with a vendor and the vendor is saying storage is expensive, bring this slide up. And then next time, vendors, when you're having a conversation with somebody basically about discounts, bring this slide up and say, we've already given you a 15 billion-fold discount. What more do you want from us? But anyway, technology, we know, doesn't stand still. From a storage perspective, we used to deal and dabble with hard drives for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Now, typically, we're talking about flash and NAND for tier 0 and tier 1 applications. But when we start having a look at what's next for storage, I mean, bearing in mind that a terabyte of storage is now fitting on a small flash drive that you can put on your finger, the next thing that we see coming through in storage is DNA storage. Now, who's messing around with that? None other than Microsoft. Microsoft actually originally announced that they wanted to present DNA storage in the cloud as an option come 2020, but obviously with coronavirus, maybe their plans are being put back a little bit. But when you have a look at the storage density of DNA, it's 213 petabytes in a gram of DNA. Just to put that into perspective, you could save all of your children's cat photos in the size of something like a house. That's it. Or you could save the entire internet in something the size of a shoebox. So again, look at where we're starting from. The cost per gigabyte of DNA storage is $223. Drop that by millions of fold over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, and it's crazy. But again, the bad news that we have sort of for anyone who's trying to sell these new DNA storage systems is that on the one hand, you don't have to bother paying for shipping any longer. But on the other, there's not going to be any customers phoning you up any longer asking you to upgrade their storage for extra disk trays or any of that kind of stuff that we all used to rely on, because the storage will just evolve itself and replicate itself. So that's a little bit of a strange view basically into some of the products that you guys and gals basically are already buying and consuming today on a daily basis. What I want to do is, this is a kind of 20-minute presentation. We've got a little bit of a boring segment coming up, so I'm going to give you guys about three and a half minutes if you want to go off and grab a coffee. If you're inclined, but if you're in the office, go over to your closest multifunction printer, print yourself off a donut or a bar of chocolate. I'm obviously aware that we can 3D print food today, so hopefully you've got those in the offices already. If not, why not have a conversation basically with your favourite vendor about that and where that is on their roadmaps. But for the rest of you, basically, so off you go. So the rest of you that are now staying, I'm going to take you through. Hopefully they've gone. Have they gone? Okay, so firstly, you guys are my favourite audience. I said not them, they've obviously gone somewhere, they've gone to get a coffee and everything else, basically, and frankly I'm a little bit disappointed that they went off. So I'm going to show you some of the good stuff. So how many of you believe in magic? Yeah, if you think about the lights in your room, they're artificial suns. Step back 100, 200, 300 years ago, that light in your room was magic. Today, you don't even bother thinking about it. The car on your driveway is faster than the Olympians, the fastest Olympians of 2,000 years ago. Even a Lime scooter is faster than the fastest Olympians from 2,000 years ago. Lime scooters, who knew it, are magic. However, let's start having a look at some of the things that you think of as science fact. I said that, well, science fiction. I said that, well, I'm not going to be talking about science fiction during this presentation. I didn't lie. I'm going to be talking about science fact. So what we have here is on the left, I'm going to stream your brain to YouTube. That's right. Imagine that with your kids. Hours of fun right there. That takes up DNA storage right there. On the right, we have holograms. What else? So if you've watched Blade Runner 2071 and you see that giant dancing ballerina, she's huge. This on the right-hand side is the granddaddy hologram version of that dancing ballerina. So just to explain these, on the left-hand side, what I'm doing is I'm using one of those fancy blue skull caps that we keep around the office, and artificial intelligence, and I'm decoding someone's brain waves as they look at the geometric images on the left in real time. So I'm decoding billions of neurons in real time to generate the pictures on the right. Now, while you think that that's actually quite grainy, we couldn't do this 5 years ago. In another 3 years, 4 years' time, these pictures basically will be almost high definition. We're accelerating, remember that. On the right-hand side, as for the holograms, you'll see that the hologram is real. It's a free air living hologram. And it's made using femto lasers, but it's not using augmented reality, glass, or any of these other sort of tricks, basically, that a lot of the marketers basically will have you believe. Now, in addition to that, while people are still getting their coffee, why don't we solve global famine? Meet Ian the chicken. So next time you have a chicken nugget, think about Ian.
We've all been there, right? In the grocery store. Oh, I'll just buy this meat. And there it is. And all we have to do is buy it. We don't have to think about what it took to make that chicken in that nice packaging. But the reality of the way that it came about, it's incredibly unsustainable. And that's one of the biggest problems facing humanity right now. But we figured out a way to solve it. The whole idea is that that chicken in itself has an unlimited source of itself, and there is a way where you can take just a handful of cells and keep growing them essentially infinitely. For those very first cells, it was important to us how we got the cells, not just that we got the cells. We came up with the idea to use one feather from the single best chicken that we could find. Take down.
The first thing we need to do is we need to identify a cell that we're going to use as the basic starter material. And Then what we need to do is find a food for it to grow in. So we have to identify the right set of nutrients that will cause the cells to multiply, but not just multiply, but do so quickly and into high densities.
Wake up, I wanna lift you up, I wanna dress you up, let's be friends.
It was an out-of-body experience to sit there and eat a chicken, but have the chicken that you're eating running around in front of you. You don't imagine doing something like that.
So I don't know about you, I'm now hungry for chicken nuggets. Now, just before everyone gets back, I'm going to give you a poll. So using some of the latest touchscreen technology, I want you to reach out, press one of these options on your screen. So for the people who went off and got a coffee, got some cake, basically got some 3D printed chocolate, what do you think we should do with them? So A, do you think we should send them on holiday? Or B, do you think we should strand them on a desert island? I know what you're thinking, send them on holiday. So just do your voting. Wow, 100% of you actually went against my advice there and said you should strand them on a desert island. That's it, you're a mean bunch. Well, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to strand them now. Basically, welcome back everyone. We've just stranded you on this lovely desert island. We aren't complete animals. Basically, there is actually a little cabana basically down the left-hand side basically for them and everything else. A couple of sharks in the water maybe. A couple of coconuts lying around. Who knows where the coconuts are? We've exiled you, frankly. And I mean, when you're exiled, when you're in the middle of literally nowhere, what can you do? That's it. I mean, could you do anything? Actually, someone, I don't know who in the audience has done this, but who out there has left them, obviously, the latest generic smartphone. We don't favour any brands here. You can tell that this is the latest smartphone because it has an umbrella incorporated into it. And if you're wondering about the coconut, that comes as an optional extra for about $100 a month, basically, on your contract. So how can we help those people on that island, in the middle of nowhere, unlock their exponential potential? How can we do that? Well, if you're one of the unfortunate people who's stuck on the desert island, basically with that smartphone, there's the first thing that I want you to do is we've got to make sure that you're okay. So I want to make sure that you are physically well and mentally well. So grab your tricorder device. I say grab your tricorder device. Sorry, smartphone. That's right, using common language there. Here's my tricorder device. So we're going to give you a quick health checkout because technologies always become cheaper and they become more accessible and eventually they become democratized. So using artificial intelligence and the cameras in your smartphone, the accelerometers in your smartphone, the microphone in your smartphone, and all these other things, I can give you a full checkup right now while you're standing on a deserted island, provided obviously you have connectivity. So we have connectivity either via 4G, 5G, and conveniently to this island, connectivity is provided to us via 12,000 orbiting space satellites, courtesy of SpaceX and Starlink, that are connecting the entire planet with internet. So if I hold my smartphone up to my face, I can scan myself using looking for the yellowness of my eyes for pancreatic cancer. You're on a very hot desert island. We care about skin cancer. I can use artificial intelligence, machine vision, and the camera to check myself for skin cancer with about an 86 to 96% accuracy. Being a futurist, one of the things that I actually do regularly basically is check my own sanity. So using the microphone, I can check myself for the onset of dementia, PTSD, depression, ADHD, Alzheimer's, and all these kinds of other things. And then just giving myself another check, I'm quite concerned about the onset of type 2 diabetes. So again, I can use my camera. And I'm also quite concerned about my heart health, so I can just talk to my phone like this. And when you get ill and when you end up with heart palpitations and everything else, your voice changes. So these tricorder devices are very good at hearing the very high ranges of your voice and the very low ranges of your voice. But what I've done there is I've democratized access to you on the desert island to access to primary or secondary health care. So you're welcome. You've all checked out well. We are wondering a little bit about your mental health because you did go off for that coffee and that chocolate, but we'll forgive you for that. Anyway, now, so we've done our checkup and we're all fighting fit. You've got to get off that desert island. So why don't we dial up a form of transportation that is green and clean? Basically, we don't want to be polluting the planet. So I'm going to call up my favourite futurist transportation. I'm going to call up a flying car, also known as robo-taxis.
This is Sky. This is everyday air mobility, designed to take off and land just about everywhere and be accessible to everyone. Sky is unique, but not exclusive. It is a radically simple solution that eliminates complexity for an unparalleled level of reliability and safety. Sky is the first air mobility vehicle powered by hydrogen fuel cells, an energy solution that's truly clean from end to end. Hydrogen provides more than 10 times the energy of current technologies and leaves nothing behind but pure water. Sky was created to minimize any impact on our planet while maximizing its positive impact on all of our lives. Sky lets us ride in the third dimension, turning our everyday commute into a fascinating experience. It is a technological breakthrough in urban mobility that is radically simple, ultimately safe, and fundamentally human. This is Sky, and it's here today.
So now you have a way off of your desert island. That's it. But unfortunately, what you didn't realise, basically, is that the audience basically actually stripped you of all your cash, assets, and wealth. So, frankly, you've got pretty much nothing. Maybe a couple of dollars basically in your bank account. However, that's not a problem. So when you get into your Sky Taxi, you have two options in front of you. So on the one hand, do you want to use option A, the augmented reality smart contact lenses from companies like Mojo? These things are actually now here and they're arriving. Or on the other hand, would you like to use the virtual reality headset? Pick one. Actually, sorry. Now, again, I forget, basically, using my futurist language. The virtual reality headset, by the way, is the glasses. Now, those glasses, and we already have some of these coming through, basically for companies like Facebook, we have them from Panasonic as well, and so on and so forth. Remember, tech always gets smaller, cheaper, and eventually becomes more ubiquitous. So using the latest metamaterials and all sorts of things, these glasses are special. So on the one hand, they are augmented reality and virtual reality specs. They also read your brain waves, because increasingly that blue skull cap, we are now packing that, and actually have packed that type of technology into a pair of glasses. And then they also come with optional tinting. So you choose, for whatever reason, the virtual reality headset. Congratulations. So now you're in your Skycopter and you are dialing up your office. So meet Bob. Bob is your digital avatar. We can call him a personal assistant, whatever you like. And it's really nice. I can see it's really nice, basically, that even though you were stranded on a desert island, you managed to find a really wrinkly suit and that you look presentable, basically, for your new virtual reality or augmented reality office. Easy for me to say. So, bearing in mind that we have the confluence of a whole variety of different technologies coming together, whether it be VR, AR, mixed reality, spatial computing, behavioral computing, where you talk to computing devices, neural interfaces coming through as well. When you start combining all of these different things together, what you have is you have a digital avatar that can understand and respond to you in natural language. In addition to that, using sensors around basically the flying car, it can sense your mood, your emotions. Basically, again, just like the trick that I used with the tricorder device, it can sense basically whether you are happy, sad, whether you are depressed, basically whether you are in need of a little bit of enlightenment and a little bit of nice calming artificial intelligence music. So you dial up your artificial intelligence avatar. This is your interface into the new digital world. And so let's get to it. Let's get busy. Let's start getting you ready for building a big business, for example. So, when we start talking about the use of artificial intelligence in the context of the vast majority of jobs that we have today, most people think artificial intelligence is just simply going to automate you away. That's partly because of companies like the Crisis News Network, basically, that keep pushing these types of news stories and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, when you start combining Bob, your digital avatar, basically with enough information, when you connect him into enough different platforms via APIs or whatever it happens to be, we start democratizing access to skills and expertise. Now, to give you an example of this, if you stepped back 20 years ago and I asked you anything at all, any type of question, what's the boiling point of hydrogen? You'd probably had to have gone to a chemistry book. Google democratized access to information. Artificial intelligence and avatars like Bob are democratizing access to expertise and skills. And I'm going to show you, and this is how we help you unlock your future exponential potential. So the first thing that we want to do, because we want to build a brand new business, and we want it to be a big business, let's go large here. I need to find a problem that is worth solving. So I select a skill. I have a chat with Bob and say, Bob, I would like you to go and find a problem that the vast majority of people have, that they will pay money for, and that we can create a problem to solve. So off Bob goes. Bob goes into the internet. Basically, he goes and has a look at Facebook and Twitter and all social media accounts. Basically, and on the one hand, digs up a load of really, really boring stuff. But on the other, he comes across a little Samsung report that came out last year that says what everyone really wants, according to this report that we sort of did last year about life in 2070, is everyone wants a robot that will help them do the housework at home. So off we go. We found our problem. We found a product that we can actually create, and a product that we can actually sell. Now, the reason why Bob has changed his clothing is because Bob is also in charge of your privacy and your online anonymity. That's it. He's kind of like your guardian, basically, to the digital world now. He can anonymize you on all of your social networks if you want, and all sorts of different things. Bob is much more than just some dumb, high-tech neural network avatar. So we found our problem. We're going to create a general-purpose robot. Now, as an individual, I have no idea how to develop a general-purpose robot, so I'm going to call up my creative artificial intelligence. These are AIs that use a whole variety of different data sources, basically, and as well as wireframes and different sort of digital information, to create brand new products. Now, today, some of these creative machines are capable of just simple iterative innovation. But they are rapidly starting to develop to the point basically where they are getting to primary innovation and then disruptive innovation. So when we start combining artificial intelligence with huge amounts of compute, and in this particular example I'm going to give you with virtual worlds, I can now use Bob to access a virtual simulator to design our next generation robot. But they can design that next generation robot, in this case a dexterous robotic hand, 100 million times faster than I would have been able to do it as a human. So we have a variety of other alternative products basically that have been made using these technologies already. So Amazon is using these technologies to train its autonomous drones. These same technologies are being used by Amazon increasingly to design the clothes that you are all wearing. Looks lovely, by the way. In Silico used some of these artificial intelligences to help them design 30,000 drugs in 21 days, and some of them were winners. Toyota just crammed 2 years of electric vehicle battery development into 16 days, including testing. And in the case of OpenAI, remember that we want a general-purpose domestic robot. They used this technology to develop the world's most dexterous hand. Can you do this? If you can, send me a postcard.
We're trying to build robots that learn, a little bit like humans do, by trial and error. What we've done is trained an algorithm to solve the Rubik's Cube one-handed with a robotic hand, which is actually pretty hard even for a human to do. We don't tell it how the hand needs to move the cube in order to get there. The particular friction that's on the fingers, how easy it is to turn the faces on the cube, what the gravity, what the weight of the cube is, all of these things, it needs to learn by itself. The interesting thing is that kind of standard techniques in robotics haven't been able to scale to that complexity that we see in a robotic hand. Humans have evolved to be able to manipulate and operate our hands. So there's a huge amount of learning that's happened through evolution to get us to this point as a species. And the robot has to learn all of this from scratch. Instead of trying to write very dedicated algorithms to operate such a hand, we took a different approach where we create thousands of different simulated environments and learn to do the task in all of those, and hopefully a robotic hand will be able to do it in the real world as well. This means like thousands of years of experience that this neural network has had in simulation. Every time the algorithm has gotten good at the task, we make the task harder. That's really crucial because it needs exposure to really complicated environments in order to eventually be robust to the real world.
So what I want you to remember is think about your interface into this world. Your interface into this world in the future is Bob. You interface him into a creative machine, and you say to the creative machine, create the world's most dexterous robotic hand. It then uses different simulation technologies to cram, in their words, thousands of years of experience into days. So now what you have is you have a digital representation of your product. However, you want to start, you need a body, and you want it ultimately printed off or produced or manufactured. So here we're going to create a body for our dexterous robotic hand. We're going to start simple. This is a little sausage robot from the University of Norway. It's ostensibly and arguably the world's first self-evolving, self-manufacturing robot. So what we did here is we tasked the robot with the goal of getting from one side of the room to the other side of the room as quickly as possible. The robot is packed with sensors. As it moves from one side of the room to the other side of the room, the information from the sensors is fed back to a creative machine, what you see on the screen now. That creative machine runs thousands of simulations a second to try to come up with robot version number 2, one that is a bit quicker. So it comes up with its design, and these AIs can run in the cloud, they can run in the computer under your desk. But again, if we're in a flying car, this is running in the cloud because you haven't got a computer under your desk because you don't have a desk. So what we now do is the creative artificial intelligence sends that design to a 3D printer. And in yesterday's world, that 3D printer would print off the parts, a human technician would assemble them back at base for you, and then put the robot back on the floor and it would go off and do its thing. However, a couple of years ago, we used a 4D printer and managed to print a robot that walked itself off the printer. Does your multifunctional printer at work do that? If it does, again, let me know. I'm interested. So this is where now, if you think about your interface, you have said, design me a product, a virtual world and a virtual simulation has helped design that product, and we now print that product off. So how much time, effort, and money have you spent doing that? Bearing in mind that increasingly more and more of these tools are actually being democratized and increasingly low cost, and eventually they'll get to free. Now, in addition to that, you might want to design a user interface or a user experience, basically for your new robot, and you need to write some code, but you can't code. So you weren't taught coding when you went to school in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, or even a little bit more recently. So using platforms like Microsoft DeepCoder or Google Bayou, or even some of the no-code platforms like BettyBlocks, that's fine. You don't need to know programming any longer. So you have a conversation, say, for example, with Google Bayou, and say, build me an application or a user interface that looks like this. you can kind of think of these new sort of no-code platforms as doing for programming what companies like Wix and WordPress ended up doing for the World Wide Web. You don't have to be a genius any longer, basically, to build a website. Although they're still tricky and mine still falls over lots. So, hey-ho. So, you've designed your new software, or you've had an artificial intelligence design your new software. AIs are also increasingly able to evolve. We have 5 AIs, one from Facebook, OpenAI, Google, a couple of others basically that have actually spontaneously evolved, either to evolve and learn maths, to negotiate and barter, and all sorts of crazy things as well. So now we've developed our product, we now need to launch our product. So again, this is where we come to marketing. As a marketing expert, realistically, there are a variety of different things that we can do today, basically when we look at how you market your products. But you want to do it yourself, you're stuck in your flying car. But the problem is, when it comes to designing a leaflet or some form of marketing collateral, let alone the images, basically you are just a crappy artist, you are rubbish. So let's democratize access to graphics, graphic design, art, whatever you want to call it.
Let's try and darken that up a bit with some cloud.
Think of a user interface where you just tell the system
What if we
what you
change
want it
all
to
that
create,
to
or
rock?
think it.
Okay, let's click on rock and we can replace the mountain.
And let's try waterfall just by pulling water down from the top then.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be great if everybody could be an artist? If we could take our ideas and turn them into compelling images? This technology allows us to create a smart paintbrush so that if you wanted to create a new picture, you can just draw the shapes of the objects that you want, and the neural network can then fill in all the details. If we add a water feature, the network is able to add reflections, not because we told it that, but because it learned it. Or if we change the ground to be covered in snow, then it knows that the sky also needs to be a different color. I really think this technology is going to be great for architects, designers, people making virtual worlds to train robots and self-driving cars. The input to this model is something we call a segmentation map. It's like a coloring book picture that describes here's where a tree is, here's where the sky is, here's where the ground is, and it doesn't have any details. And then the neural network is able to fill in all of the texture and shadows and the colors based on things that it's learned from a large database of real-world images.
I would like to see a tree reflecting in that pond.
The real advance here is that we're able to synthesize images with a lot more diversity and more fidelity than we were able to in the past. I really think this technology is going to be great for the dreamers of the world.
Now, of course, when it comes to promoting your new marketing material, you might want a celebrity face. You might want David Beckham. That's it, but he's probably a little bit expensive and might not be available. So you can use deep fakes, and there's a variety of different ways that we can create different deep fakes today that you can use basically in your marketing campaigns and everything else. So on the one hand, we can use things like generative adversarial networks to create a deep fake, and we can bring in music, we can get them to say anything that we like. And those deep fakes in the next 3 years, you're not going to be able to tell them apart from real people. So all of a sudden, basically, we have a new way, basically, to market our products. However, some of your products have actually been selling, and you've got a little bit of money in the bank. So you've reached out, basically, to an agency in New York, and they've given you some staff. So on the one hand, you've got some sales staff back in New York now, but you really want this to go big really quickly. So why not build yourself a digital human? And when we have a look at digital humans are fantastic because on the one hand, you can create a digital human using a neural network brain like Bob, and those can become your online representatives. They can become your digital ambassadors, they can become your virtual influencers. And actually, in some cases, some of these digital humans from companies basically like Synthesia, we've also got them from Samsung as well, if you saw Neon, increasingly, basically, these can actually act as your sales force or as your influencer community. And some of them are actually starting to replace video bloggers. If you have a look at little Michaela, she's raking in millions now. So let me introduce you to two of my favorite virtual humans. They're a bit stuck in the office at the moment, so you have to excuse them. Meet Roman and Sam.
Well, this is a bit awkward.
For whom? As for the humans?
Without a doubt, the bipeds. What if it's a real fire and they never come back? What if it gets into our circuits and we melt? What if this is the end of everything as we know it? What then?
Wow, I sure lucked out getting stuck in a room with you.
I didn't mean to ramble on.
I was just playing with you.
Well, how come I've never met you before?
I'm in demand, jetting all over the world. Conferences, festivals, French Riviera. People love me.
I can see why.
Sorry, I didn't quite get what you said. Humans mumble too. Guess they programmed you well.
I'm Roman.
And I'm Sam. If it weren't for the laws of physics, I'd reach through this screen to shake your hand.
And I'd hand you a martini, shaken not stirred.
That's more like it. So what do you do to fill in time when the humans go home?
For me, I'd like to be an author. So I'm writing a book.
Interesting. What's it called?
Do AI get a buzz from short circuits? How about you? What do you dream about being?
The President of the United States. Stranger things have happened.
Well, it's been how should I say this?
A deep learning experience.
And in fact, in China, they do have an artificial intelligence politician in the foreign ministry who helps them negotiate trade deals. Stranger things have happened. So now, though, we've built a product, so we've found a problem, we've built a product, we've manufactured the product, basically we've launched the product. Now you need to plan for your retirement. So using your next skill, you buy a little bit of land, basically somewhere on the planet, and you can execute that as a smart contract on the blockchain. There are a couple of different ways that you can do that. But you need to build yourself a mansion because you want to retire, you want to settle down, you got fed up with that desert island that all those meanies basically stuck you on. So why don't we actually just print you off? So there we go. And increasingly, those buildings and buildings like them are actually being designed by creative machines as well. So NASA recently used some of these GANs and these generative design systems to design habitats for Mars. As well as lunar rovers, GM is using them to design cars and all kinds of things. Basically, so you can just tap into your local friendly creative machine and say, design me a house. It will have a look at all the different details that it can hoover up on you about you from the internet, and it can design a house for you. However, that particular house, while it can withstand the test of time, doesn't really have a power source. You're rich now. You deserve a proper house with a proper power source. So what about 3D printing a nuclear reactor, basically, in your new fancy mansion, which in that case was actually over in Dubai. So here we have the US Department of Energy that is 3D printing a mini nuclear reactor complete with nuclear core in a lab. And this thing just keeps going and going and going and everything else. Yeah. When we start talking about not just the exponential future and unleashing basically your own exponential potential, get your head outside of the box that you might be in and start exploring all of this stuff. That's it. There's amazing amounts of different innovative things out there. And frankly, I'm scratching the surface here. When we talk about sci-fi, think about anything that you think of in science fiction is already science fact. We've got aliens, basically, that have 6 and 8 base paired DNA. You think I'm crazy? Go and have a look at that one on the internet. We've turned E. coli basically into biological computers that can store information and compute information. We've turned human cells into dual-core computers. This is just scratching the surface. When you start having a look at the exponential future, it's very, very different to what you might be imagining. And it's not doom and gloom. However, you have now made all of your money. You're still on that flying car, flying taxi, whatever you really want to call them. It's coming into land, basically near Houston. And fortunately, SpaceX are now starting to build a variety of different docks, basically out in the Gulf. And coming 2024, this has been flight tested about 50 times already. You've seen them on television, but you quite fancy basically sort of living in one part of the world and commuting, if you have to, obviously, to another part of the world. Maybe you want to commute to the other side of the planet and back in the same day. So, and you've made it, you've earned it, you're rich, it's great. These tickets will eventually cost the same as a traditional long-range airline ticket, and you just think, why not? Does this resemble your morning commute, by the way? I'm guessing So, the moral of that story, frankly, audience, is don't strand people on desert islands, because ultimately they might come and find you in their rocket and brag about it. I was going to say something else there, but they might brag about it. So when we think about the future is faster than you think. the things that we can do in the future are more extreme than you think. And when it comes to being able to tap into your exponential human potential, we are only just getting started. So thank you very much. Basically, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And now basically we're going to get on with some other things. Basically, we're going to talk about science fact again. But I hope you have a great rest of the event. And thank you for joining me. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.